everyone, welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm Ashley Smith. You'll notice that Dr. Pompa is actually the one being interviewed today, and for good reason. Today we welcome some very special friends from a podcast called Women in Wellness. When Dr. Pompa joined them to discuss detox, the conversation was so good, we asked if we could share it with our CHTV audience. So here it is. In this episode, the doctors discuss heavy metal testing, how to detox correctly, and how to identify and address other chronic infections, such as mold, Lyme disease, and candida. They'll also discuss how Dr. Pompa's own healing journey is a true example of pain to purpose. You won't want to miss this episode. But first, I'd love to introduce the fabulous Women in Wellness team. Doctors Caitlin, Mindy, and Sonia dive into the key health and wellness topics that plague the modern-day woman. These three docs are in the health trenches with women who are struggling with their health. All three run very successful functional health clinics and share a burning passion to help women navigate the long list of health ailments that women are dealing with in today's world. The Women in Wellness podcast was born out of these docs' desire to empower women who are trying to do it all: family, work, and stay on a path of health. Their dream is to give women the knowledge and tools to steer their health in whichever direction they choose. You can check out their amazing podcast, Women in Wellness, and that's the letter N, to catch up on their latest episodes. You will love their show. And practitioners, please be sure to check out HCF's Live It to Lead It seminar in Nashville, where we'll have a lineup of top health experts, including Dr. Pompa and the Women in Wellness crew, who will explore the latest research and most effective strategies in the field of cellular healing. Please go to hcfevents.com for more information. Practitioners, you can take $150 off with the code CHTV when you purchase the 4-day pass. And for the rest of the CHTV audience, we have some exciting news. We have opened up one day of the conference to the public. Please go to events.drpompa.com if you'd like to attend and hear amazing speakers who will leave you feeling inspired and ready to take action. We hope to see you there. All right, so let's get started and welcome Dr. Pompa, Dr. Caitlin, and Dr. Mindy to the show. This is Cellular Healing TV.
We are really excited for this interview today, and we're bummed that Dr. Sonia's not here with us, she's bummed too. But we have brought on our mentor and who we've been learning heavy metal detox from, and we are just really excited to go through how he developed it, why he uses the approach he uses, that not only are you seeing miracles with Dr. Pompa, but we're seeing miracles in our office as well. So welcome. Let's start off just by welcoming you and thanking you for being here.
Yeah.
Dr. Caitlin and I were talking before you came on. We have so much gratitude for you. You really taught us how to think and not just throw protocols at people, not just throw supplements at people, but really pushed us, I want to say, because there were times I just wanted a quick fix protocol given to me. But you really pushed us to think deeper about people's health and always get up to that root cause and go upstream. And because of that, what we've been able to help in our office has just been incredible. So, Dr. Caitlin, you jump in.
I want to chime in because my biggest thank you, and I'm sure every single one of my patients would thank you too, is myself and my husband, we were looking for a very long time on finding a safe and effective heavy metal detox. We actually were looking at getting certified in chelation therapy and all these other things, but all the research and everything to back it up, we were just not comfortable doing it until we found TCD. And that was the first time where we were like, oh, finally something that's safe, effective, that's really going to help us be able to take our patients to that next level of healing, because that was always an underlying issue for everybody. I'm sure you guys would agree. Everybody has heavy metal toxicity problems.
Yeah.
But now we're able to address it. So thank you.
Well, it means a lot to me. You know, it's funny. We just discussed this before we got on. I was saying, isn't it amazing? I just had another person that I spoke to who had been to a top doctor in our space, and yet they still weren't well, of course, and they had done everything, spent obviously a lot of money, and they still had, everything. And they still had a silver filling and root canals, which means infection, hidden infection in their mouth. And it's amazing to me. And I said these words: are we the only group of practitioners and doctors on the planet, doing what we do with looking for the causes and doing the right detox on top of it? It amazes me. It does. So anyways, honored to be here to talk about these things that we know are, people need to hear.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot in our group about how it's the two people that aren't getting well that really force us to go looking for more answers. And I think that I resonate with what you said, Dr. Caitlin. Like, those two people, I could not get well before I had TCD as a resource and a tool for me, would keep me up at night. And it was in digging that we both, even Dr. Sonia would say that the same thing, found your teachings. So,
well, what honors me the most is, obviously it has nothing to do with any of us here. And for me, speaking about it is, it's a lone voice, right? But, now you girls, look what you've done, with this, right? You started, this show, and we're branching out in a growing group to make a difference. Every one of us know we have a message the world needs. And it's not going to get out even just with the three of us, right? It's like we need more of us speaking this, and teaching it as well. Both of you are teaching at the next seminar, right? It's you have a lot to teach. You do. You have a lot to share.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is, the more that you learn, the more you realize there's way more to learn about everything.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I think that's a really good place to start too, because what blows me away, and we talk all the time on this podcast about this, is that we just live in the most toxic time in human history. The more you dig, the more you're like, oh, how are we alive? Like, why is it that the human body is so resilient? How the heck are we even alive? So, but then when you start to look at what your resources are for detoxing, they're really sparse. There's no proper detox out there. Yep. So maybe you could start off by just talking about how you came across heavy metals. I know you had your own journey with it. And more specifically, how did you come across this way of detoxing these metals?
Yeah, I'll focus on that. It's probably the most interest to people because it really applies to them getting their lives back, right? My story was such. I just like so many people. I had all these bizarre symptoms that started, and mostly started with fatigue, and then it goes to brain fog, then sleep problems, then anxiety. I, like many, I tracked down my adrenals, my thyroid, my hormones, all, going south quickly. But just like most, addressing those things, helped some things, but most things not. Wasn't getting my life back. And then, just like we've been saying here, I tracked it upstream with the help of a very bright endocrinologist, actually, who said, Dan, I think you have heavy metal toxicity. And I said, I thought so too. But a year before, I did a blood test. Classic mistake. No heavy metals. And then when he said, do this test, I challenged it out of my tissue. And there it was. And then, of course, I asked the logical question, where do you think I got it from? Did you have any dental work done when this all happened? Sure enough, I did. So those silver fillings, 50% mercury, you've talked a lot about that. I won't bore your listeners. But, the bottom line is when I was sick too, I thought that my problem, that my thyroid and adrenals were too far downstream, which I was right. I thought it's the pituitary hypothalamus, which runs those, right? It sits in the center of our brain. But every time I tried to do stuff for that, it didn't work either. It oftentimes made me worse. I realized later that that's where these neurotoxins accumulate. Mm-hmm. And of course, hormonally, we have this disrupted society because of all the toxins. But who's going out, after it in the right place? A lot of people are doing colon cleanses, liver cleanses, this cleanse, that cleanse. But if we don't get it up to the cell, and more specifically in the brain, we're not going to change lives. I didn't get my life back until I got it out of my brain. And there's so many things that affect it, right? Hidden infections, Caitlin, that's your story, right? And partly mine too. These causes people aren't, going up to. But, and then, as far as like how I created this, From Pain to Purpose has been my life. I was dyslexic as a child. I couldn't read until 6th grade. I can't even say I could read in 6th grade. At least that's when they identified that I was dyslexic. I didn't even remember them calling it that. They said I had a reading problem, right? That makes you dumb, of course. I always say jokingly, I rode the short bus, but I was in the special classes. So that doesn't do a lot for your ego, right? Or your confidence anyway. But what happened during that time is I compensated to fake people out because I didn't want to be called out on my problem. And so I developed this part of my brain that, today, fast forward, I'm able to read literature and apply it. I'm able to remember everything about it. And even years ago, I read a study on that and I find it again. So I'm able to put these things together. So From Pain to Purpose, it's like, I'm telling you, God developed my brain for this very reason, just in this area. I got sick for this, right? I was dyslexic for this. So I always challenge everybody, including my own children, look at your weaknesses and your pain, the things you complain about the most, just maybe, therein lies your greatest superhero, right? Your superpower most likely is in the things that we hate about ourselves the most or most insecure about, who knows. But, through my illness, through that, I really started, when I started getting online and searching about detox and heavy metals, I realized, like probably most people watching, oh my gosh, there's controversy all over this. So using my superpower, I started digging and putting it together. Everything that we do today, really came out of all that. And, putting together where real detox is, and it's at the cell. And then, it was funny because, again, like looking at people's work, I had a knack for seeing what actually worked, what they were doing that worked. And Richie Shoemaker was a mold guy who found that this cholesterol binding agent that people don't even use anymore, but it bound up the bile that our liver dumps that's toxic. And he gave it to people unknowingly. Literally, these people were getting hit with this biotoxin in the Pocomo River. Fish were dying and making people really sick. They were coming in with fatigue, anxiety, sleep issues, and diarrhea. So he gave them this binder called cholestyramine to deal with their diarrhea. One of the I realized that was the piece of his work and discovery that was a key piece. So why did it work? What was it doing? And then we found a certain binder, very specific binder in literature that only binds the biocomplex. Other carbons and things that people use, they don't do it, but this one did. And it's really hard to process and manufacture because it literally sticks to walls. This stuff's amazing. So anyways, we utilize that as part of this process that it sits in the gut along with 3 other binders, doesn't leave the gut. And it pulls the toxins of cell function, which nobody does in detox, which is the key, because if you don't do that, you don't get well. This is where the problem is the cell. So that's where the 5 R's became the first step. And then using another binder to move it from there to the liver into this other catcher's mitt that sits in the gut called bind. That process, literally, I'm telling you when I say this, and it sounds trite to say this, it really does. I'm not smart enough to come up with it. God brought me through these discoveries, putting them together, upregulating cell function, using a binder from the cell that we now call cytodetox to the binder in the gut. And this process, and then supporting it, right? There's preparatory stuff, there's opening up downstream pathways, all of that. It was from God. It was. Maybe a lot of prayer and other people praying, and again, it sounds trite to say that, but I honestly mean it. He gave us something very special that we all use.
Yeah, and I think the binders have really been pivotal of what we've seen in our office is that and opening up the detox pathways, that those those two steps seem to be so missing in all other detox programs that I've seen out there. And, there's a lot of great ones like protein powders and, Caitlin likes to say the Corellas and the wheatgrass. And
but this is
cilantro, not wheatgrass.
Cilantro, sorry.
So they all miss it, right? Meaning that, people do these things, even like raise glutathione. Well, if you raise glutathione without a binder in the gut, you're in deep trouble.
Right.
If you raise glutathione without a binder moving it even to the liver and out of the body, you're in trouble, right? So, and those things are weak binders. It's like, but yet every detox product has them in it. And I'm sure you've used the example that I love to use. It's like the street sweepers, right? You see that plume of dust settling on the cars around you. Wonder, what are our tax dollars even paying for? It does nothing to the street. That's these weak binders. It just creates more redistribution, and look, no one's put it all together, and again, I always like to say, look, we don't have all the answers, but in this world of cellular detox and true detox, we have something nobody else is doing. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, my biggest problem is nobody's putting it all together, just like you said, where you might be taking something that makes you poop a lot, but it's not actually opening up your detox pathways for everything to actually move out. And so just like you said, Dr. Pompa, you're just like reabsorbing the toxins that you're moving from one cell and putting it somewhere else, which is why up until TCD, I always had people coming in who've done these other heavy metal detox programs and felt like crap after. They felt worse than before they even did it.
Yeah.
And so
it's so common, and again, and then it even goes beyond our detox, right? I mean, it's this multi-therapeutic approach that we're doing. I mean, the fasting, the feast famine cycles, the diet variation, and nobody's putting it all together, right? And again, we don't have all the answers, but what we're doing, nobody's doing, and gosh, we need more of us, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit, and we've talked about this too on the show. So when you say people add in glutathione and they start to push the toxins out of the cell, I think it's pretty common. If you go to Whole Foods or a natural food store, you can find a lot of glutathione on the shelves. You can find a lot of mitochondrial detoxes are quite popular right now. I think the most popular, what I hear people talk the most about, is chelation. Can you talk a little bit about why that is not sufficient enough and what people need to think about? Because I think people really, because of the cost and the fact that it's IV, they get really excited about that without knowing it's not effective.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the glutathione you buy at, say, Whole Foods, most of it doesn't even make it into your gut, and it definitely doesn't make it into your cell. All right, so then there's IV. I started really doing a lot of glutathione research because I would, like many people, right? I went in, they said, oh, this glutathione, it'll help you so much. And I got it and I reacted terribly. So of course, then I dug in to be like, why? Only to learn it's not a strong binder for heavy metals. So it just redistributed a lot of the mercury around my body. It's really good in the cell to move toxins out of the cell. But then once they come out of the cell, you better have a really strong binder to move it all the way out of the body. And, it's like, that's what people don't understand. So, and of course, glutathione is a part of the picture, but by itself, it doesn't do a great job, right? It needs stronger binders. Heavy metals are very difficult, to get rid of. And same with other infections, hidden infections, very difficult. You need other binders that are better at binding those things than glutathione. So it works great in the cell, but beyond the cell, we can be in trouble. And then there's the other IVs like DMSA or DMPS. I did DMPS Challenge IV, and I was, weeks of, ready to take the bridge. I mean, it was not good. So of course I start digging like, okay, what happened there? Only to find out that there's a half-life and it's water soluble and it pulls a lot at once. It goes away. And then what your body doesn't get rid of redistributes. I should have stayed on it, daily for a few days before I stopped it. I mean, who can do that many IVs? Nobody. So, through that honestly, all these things, maybe I learned more from the things that made me sick and worse, and at least not better than I did from, anywhere else, so again, from pain to purpose.
I think we all learn that way, the hard way,
Yeah.
with ourselves.
Yeah.
Half-life, so important, so important, and we have talked about it before.
Yeah, but who talks about it, Caitlin, right? I mean, you all talk about on this show, right? Like using binders in their half-life. And I hope people understand that, meaning that you have to keep the level up a certain amount in the blood so you don't get redistribution. If you give a chelator that actually works, unlike these weak binders that are all the detox products on the store shelves, but if you give one that works, it goes away and redistribution happens. So keeping it up and taking it within that half-life or under the half-life it minimizes that redistribution because there's always a binder present, right? It keeps mopping up. And then staying on it enough days to when you stop, you don't get that redistribution again.
Well, and that's what I love about Cyto is that the half-life isn't every 3 hours like DMSA.
Yeah, it's hard.
It was crotchety.
Yeah.
When I had to wake up every 3 hours to make sure that I was taking DMSA to avoid redistribution.
Yeah.
That's not something compliance-wise long-term that people can do long enough to truly detox themselves.
Yeah, it's like 10 or 12 hours. So some people do fine with it twice a day. Some people do better with it 3 times a day, just because it is kind of right around there. But yeah, much easier to take, right? I mean, so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, you mentioned, Dr. Pompa, how originally when you were trying to figure out why you were so sick, you did this blood test for heavy metals and it came back, everything was good. And then you did a challenge test. Do you mind touching on, is testing necessary to know whether or not you have heavy metal toxicity? What type of testing? And then we can go into how long it actually takes to heavy metal detox.
Yeah, those are like all really good questions. If I was watching this, I'd have those same questions because I did at one point too. So let's start here. There's no perfect test because again, what makes most people sick is what's deep in their tissue, nerve tissue, mostly the brain. And without biopsy, no test shows what's that deep. So even the one that I did that challenges it out of the tissue, then we're able to measure it in the urine, still didn't show what was in my brain. So maybe I got a little lucky that enough was built up in my tissue that it reflected my brain. We always hope that when we do a test. So I do still think the best test is challenging it out of the tissue and then seeing what's there. But caution, because if you do that and come off of the agent, then you're going to get that redistribution. So you have to stay on the agent. There's a right way to do the test, right? So and you girls walk your clients through that. But the other part of that question, around testing is the blood test you had mentioned, right? I had said, a year before I did the right test, I thought, oh, this is why I'm sick. I found Mad Hatter's disease, and it's people were making felt hats, were using mercury as a part of the process. And I had every symptom that they had. So I was like, this is it. I'm mad as a hatter. And I went out and did a blood test and it was negative. That's good for that acute exposure, meaning you're getting exposed every day or, at least weekly, right? Which wasn't the case for me. I was exposed when I had all the fillings in and it just was bioaccumulating in my brain over the years. So it didn't show up in my blood, it showed up in a normal range. So again, you have to do the right test. And the other part of the question is it necessary? I don't know that it is. I would say for some people it's necessary because they have to see something. But some of your sickest people, as we can speak about, it won't show because it just won't come out, right? So you have to be a little careful. But some people need to see something. So for those people, it's necessary. But if it walks like a duck, quacks like one, it's fuzzy like one, maybe it's a duck. I mean, meaning that we become very good at doing this and you can see a mile away heavy metal people, right? So for me, maybe it's not necessary. Sometimes I like to test because, lead shows up more accurately on these tests because it's stored mostly in the body. So does arsenic, maybe we will change, some of the binders and chelators that we used if, keep someone on a certain one if they have super high lead levels. So in that case, I think it's a good thing to do. But is it absolutely necessary? No. I mean, I've done a lot of people without ever testing and it worked out just fine, but I think it can help.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth with testing, not testing. And I think a really common question is, how long is this going to take, is people will ask. And one nice thing about the test is if your metals are off the chart, like sit tight, this is going to be, you always say it's going to take years. So sometimes that's helpful for people to know that the process.
Especially lead, lead, when you have a super high lead level like my wife had, lead's harder to get out of the bone. It takes longer, I should say. It's not harder. It just takes longer than even mercury out of the brain. I mean, literally, it's estimated 7 to 15 years. It'll just, keep coming out of that bone when you're doing the right thing to get it out. I mean, that's a long time. But see, and that's why I would say, you've heard me always say this, it's the doctors that make people think that they're going to detox something like heavy metals, out of their body and brain in 3 months, 6 months. It doesn't people no service at all. It's a disservice because it's years, not months. And so our goal, one of the unique things that we do as a group of doctors is we educate, we coach the people on the process. That empowers them to do it long enough to actually matter, because it is years. It took me, I did brain phases for 4 years. And at a certain point, I did it a little more inconsistently, purposely. I would do several in a row, then take a month or two off, several in a row, and then we're talking phases, whether it's, 7 on, 7 off, 3 on, 4 off, whatever it is, 4 on, 10 off, but all detox should be cycle, and then I would purposely take a little longer off cycle. But I always knew when to start again. I always would be, my wife, I should say, knew, because she'd be like, you need to chelate, you need to get back on your cycle. I guess I got irritable.
I think I need to do another brain.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, is that what was going on with me today?
Yeah. When the lights start dimming in the room, if it goes slow enough, you don't realize you're in darkness until someone turns the light. Literally, within 2 pills, I'd be like, oh my gosh, she was right. She was right. It's like, I feel like $1 million again. But what we do is unique. Is our goal is to train the person in the process. That way they don't need us, right? It's like,
Exactly.
they get used to doing it. They know what to look for. They know when to adjust things, and that's, education is the power here.
Yeah.
Do you maybe want to touch on then why it's important to have somebody teach you how to do it versus just trying to pick up a box and do it on your own? Because I hear and see that all the time. Oh, I'll just go pick it up. I don't need your help.
Look, if you have a condition, it's impossible to do yourself. People will hire a coach to help them improve tennis or golf. I mean, how much more important is this? Look, the doses are different for everyone. The cycle lengths are different for everybody. It's in the body teaches us what that is. Some people do better with higher doses than lower doses, longer cycles than shorter cycles and longer cycles. You are not going to be able to figure that out on your own. You're not. And then there's the support around it, right? It's like, well, I'm doing bad. Well, that could be a lymphatic issue. It could be a liver issue. It could be a gut issue. Gosh, it's like if you have to hire a coach. That's all I can tell you. There's no way of knowing that. It's like me trying to learn how to hit a golf ball. I'm going to guess on what I think is right, but I'm going to be there a while, and I'm probably going to make myself worse. That's what happens without a coach.
Yeah. And I think the way my brain thinks is that toxins aren't getting any less in our world. So now's the time, whether you have massive symptoms or not, you need to learn how to detox. There is a way that the body wants you to pull these toxins out of you. And when you just pick up a box, or you pick up a set of pills, there's no education in that. You're just taking them. You don't know if they're working. You might feel bad and go, okay, well, they're working because I feel bad, but you don't understand the protocol. And I think that it's just as important as learning how to eat. You got to learn how to detox.
Maybe more importantly today, because I think we would all echo this, and we have. Look, the perfect diet won't get you well today, but you won't get well without it. But It won't get you well today, meaning that you have to remove these sources, upstream sources that we're talking about. That's the key. That's how, we're seeing these, miracles that we see as we get upstream on it. And today, the perfect diet, it's just part of the picture. Yeah. So you have to learn this, to your point. You have to be educated in the process. There lies the true value. If you have treatments, You will go broke doing treatments. You can't be treated for this because, again, you need to learn the process to continue beyond the 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is.
Yep. Yeah. And, I think a lot of our listeners may already be doing TCD. I know we have some listeners that are TCD practitioners. We have some docs. Can you talk a little bit about why you would want to do an on-off cycle? Because that's kind of where I think the art has really happened for us after detoxing so many people. We now can clue in and go, oh, wait, you need a shorter on cycle and a little longer off cycle. And I think that, along with those binders, is a really missing part of detox.
Yeah, I mean, when we look in nature, all detox is cycle, even in the environment, right? They're seasonal, there's cycles, weather cycles. I mean, everything cycles. And, and really when you look at how it cleans nature, it's a cycling. The microbiome changes outside in nature via cycles, weather cycles. There's a time for this and a time for that. A woman cycles monthly. That's a cleansing process that the body does. So my point is that all detox cycles. Okay, so the next question is why? Well, when we look at cycling that we're talking about here in our body, a couple things happen. Number one, you're resting your detox pathways. You can't keep putting that stress on, just like the environment, right? We want to give that the liver, the kidney, the gut, the lymphatic system time to rest. You don't want to stress it continually. Number two, something, and I don't want to bore people with the science, but things move from higher concentration to lower. So when we cycle, we give time for the deeper tissue, higher concentration toxins to move across that concentration. So therefore, some people will do better with a little longer cycle, give that a little more time. Some people, because it moves so quickly, they need to get on a cycle right away. How do you know? Well, these are some of the questions that you all are trained in, to know when that is. Okay, we're going to shorten the cycle. We're going to lengthen the cycle. So, some people do better with higher doses because they have so much circulating. And, it's like, so all of these are things that, again, have to be individually adjusted.
And what are your thoughts on symptoms of detoxing? Are they good? Are they bad?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get that all the time. I think, I like a little symptoms because some people know something's happening, right? But of course, you can't shut down someone's life either. So again, I think all of us, and I hope I've taught you this. It's in the sense of, I like to give people the steering wheel, right? Or at least the gas pedal. Anyway, maybe that's a better analogy. We'll steer them, but you have the gas. Meaning, if you think you can handle that speed, continue it. If it's ruining you, back up, right? Again, there's the value in the education. I think giving people some say in, doctors don't do this, right? I mean, say in their care, it works, but you have to educate them on doing that. Can you handle that? Well, if this happens, then back down. Let's try that. I think involving people in their care is something that doesn't happen today, but I think it's absolutely critical, and it's very, very important, for people to start learning that feel, and it is, I call it, you have to learn the dance, and it's different for everybody. So again, you're going to have to involve them, in their care.
Yeah. And it's different at different times. Some people can take a really long on cycle and they can do a short off cycle. And then all of a sudden something changes. I've seen that happen before. Yeah. And, we get, Dr. Caitlin, I'm sure you get this as well. I have patients that are like, I just want to put my head down and I just want to detox. Like, I'm just going to push on through it. And my response typically is that there's no awards won for the fastest detoxer. Like, nobody's going to give you a gold medal. So you do have to figure that dance out.
Absolutely. And then there's a time where you get that person who wants to push too hard. And we're saying, hey, you need to back down because we know the detox pathways can only handle so much.
Right.
And then we'll end up with a new problem, we'll blow out the gut, so again, it's part of that education process we do with the person. And you've heard me always say this, you have to know who's before you, right? Yeah. The person who's like kind of afraid, take it a little slower with that. Yeah. The person who's gung-ho that you have to pull back. You have to know who's in front of you all the time, and coach accordingly.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I was that person where I'm like, I'm just going to do this.
I bet you were.
I was always putting myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
But you learn.
Yeah. No, I can see that person when they come into my office and their eyes are like this. And I'm like, okay, now come on, let's just slow this sucker down.
No. And then their comment is, but I just want to get this stuff out of me. Okay. Let's not shut down your cells and your pathway.
That's right.
And I can honestly say that when I did slow it down and take a step back, I got better results.
Yeah.
I really believe that I started taking more of the toxins that were built up and getting them out of my system. Versus when I was just.
Listen, smaller doses work better for some people. Large doses work better. We said that earlier, and it's so true. And again, that's why you need a coach, because what would determine that is not what you think oftentimes. So.
Right. Yeah. So, I like steps. So the way my brain thinks is like, okay, if you're listening to this, you want to do the proper heavy metal test to begin with, if you're going to test it. And then B, when you actually do detox these metals out, you want to really open up the pathways, and then you want to pull it out of the body, pull it out of the brain. And then the third step that I've been teaching my patients is, if you are having a really tough detox reaction, start by upping your binders, slow the on-off cycles down. This is what you've taught us. And then the third one, and I know both of you could talk on this particular subject for hours, is maybe if you're having a bad detox reaction, you didn't get to all sources of toxins. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know that that's really common for people, even following TCD, that they're like, but I've been doing it for years. Why am I not better?
So glad you asked that, because that you've heard me say this so many times. If somebody's not progressing as you would expect, there's something else upstream, right? Yep. And how many times has it happened to us, right? Where all of a sudden, you've asked the questions, right? And then I just got this email last week, and they ended up finding mold. You know how I pressed them for that? And but we had it tested, and then they ended up opening up a wall because there was a new leak, and there was ridiculous black mold, or the cavitation, right? The hidden cavitation that my doctor looked at it, it's like, okay, let's just check one more time, and I'm going to send you to my guy, right? And then boom, there it is on a cone beam X-ray, right? How many times? So, looking for these hidden things, whether it's mold, whether it's, a root canal, cavitation, hidden infection, it's critical that because once sensitive to one neurotoxin, you become sensitive to all. And you've heard me say this all the time. The cavitation, hidden infection from a wisdom tooth being pulled, which creates the cavitation 88% of the time, that may not be what made you sick, but you will not get well if that infection's still there. So you darn better check, right? Or there's an amalgam under a crown that you swore there wasn't. Caitlin, did you tell your story about your husband? I don't know. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Perfect example of what we're talking about. So.
Yeah, no, I had cavitations, and then we found out my husband, after doing over a year of TCD, he hit a plateau, and we couldn't get him past it no matter what. And we thought we got all of the mercury out of his mouth. We even called the dentist that put the crown on one of his teeth to make sure that there was no silver fillings, no amalgams under it. And they assured us and reassured us and told us over and over again. And then our biological dentist up here, Rebecca Taylor, took the crown off and was like, there's a huge freaking piece of silver filling under there. And so that entire time he was just re-intoxicating himself because we didn't know it was there.
Yeah. I mean, it's absurd. How many people are doing this detox or that, and they still have a mouthful of metal. And again, the body can tolerate some of that, and it may, clearing the body may even help, right? People and go, but I feel help. But after a certain point, it's going to start, when this gets clear, it'll start going after the metals, and it's again, detox done wrong.
When you can ask all the right questions, or you think you're asking your dentist all the right questions, and boom, there's still something there, just like the mold in the wall. Then boom, it's there.
We were talking about the movie, and I had just actually recently saw it's called Root Cause, and very well done. It's on Netflix. Your people should watch it. But I loved how it started, because the person that did it, actually, I think he was the director, but he went through his story, how he was punched and he ended up with a root canal. And all his symptoms started after that. but he never put together. But he went through everything he did. He did this, he did that, he did acupuncture. I mean, he went through everything that most people, like, I did that. Piles of supplements, medications, everything, you name it, went down the list, still sick. And then when someone says, it's the root canal, right? And of course he gets the root canal out, done, did the proper stuff afterwards and gets his life back. But, it's the classic thing. And how many people are looking at these causes? And again, it's beyond the root canal. It could be a cavitation. It could be the mercury hidden somewhere. And it absolutely could be the mold that's unknowingly in your basement.
Yeah. And I think that's to me, that's the toughest moment, when you got to go looking for those hard answers. And if you're really sick, you got to address them. We had a patient we couldn't even get her 2 days in the body phase without her being so fatigued. And we had her do a mold test. She was in a fully remodeled house. There was a little bit of mold. She brought a Wi-Fi guy in to look and see if there was dirty Wi-Fi anywhere. Yeah, there was a little bit. So everything was a little bit. And then we sent her to have her cavitations looked at. And 2 cavitations cleaned out, came back into our clinic. And she's, now we're 8 weeks into a brain phase. She can detox, no problem.
Yeah. If there's an upstream source still hidden, you're not going to get your life back, and it is one of those things. It seems like, alternative medicine is not catching on to. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just because they don't want to deal with it. If they don't want to tell people that they have to, get their home remediated or leave a home or get a cavitation surgery done. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Yeah. If they're worried about something too hard or too, so what? I don't want to waste their time or mine, right? Am I right on that? It's like,
right.
I think we owe it to people to tell them this. And
you know what I think it is? I think a lot of doctors are worried about the patient's finances and trying to determine what a patient can and can't do. Yet, if you don't give them all the information and all the options, you're hindering them. You're actually potentially making them worse, just like the person you just saw who saw this expert doctor. You're not helping them.
Yeah, no, it's true, right? And I think we owe it to people to tell them the truth, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. We owe it to people to say, look, you won't get well if this is still there. And it's true. You may get well for, but I feel a little better. You won't get well lasting if those upstream causes are there. So eventually, if you want your life back, you're going to have to figure it out. And we all did, right? When I got my life back, I had nothing. We lost everything, but here I am, right? Life will rebuild if you have your life, if you have your health, but if you don't, give people the chance. I think you're right. Prejudging them based on their finances and that I think it's a big mistake.
And I also think it's interesting for people listening to this to understand that some people are going to do heavy metal detoxing, go through TCD, and it's like miraculous, like boom, their life comes back right away. And then other people will spend years and they will have to really go after all these root causes. And to understand that this system works, you just have to follow the different steps.
Yeah.
I think.
It wasn't like 6 months into the brain phase for me that I actually saw some light. And then it was up and down after that. And my wife would have to talk me down because I would have my bad days or in the beginning, bad weeks. And she'd be like, look, you just had the best week of your life. And, I always thought I can't go back there because I was so scared. And then it went to bad days. And she still would have to talk me down. Then it went to like bad hours and she still had to talk me down. But the point is it's like the stock market. It's up and down, but it was like, it was after a year of the brain phase that I was putting like good months together. Right. But I'm telling you, if I still had a bad day, I was still like, oh my God, I can't go back, but I think that's a really good message and again, I was pretty severe, but I tell you this, I looked back over an 8-year period. And even if you would have met me 4 years after it, I'd have been like, oh, I'm perfectly healthy. And then, year 5, I'm like, actually, I'm healthier again, right? Year 6, gosh, I'm healthier again. But if you'd have met me through that process, I always thought I was like, perfectly healthy. I just didn't know. Like, my brain, I'm in my 50s now and it works far better, than when I was in my 20s.
I think that's so important for people to understand. It's not just this linear exponential health, rate that you're going to achieve. It really, you are going to do these ups and downs and step backs and, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, but you just got to keep going. And I know, unless you want to throw something in right now, I know, Mindy, you wanted to talk about heavy metals and co-infections and how important addressing those 2 things at the same time.
You guys really thought this through. I think I'm gonna have to air this show on Cell TV, the interview of Dr. Pompa. So it's really good because you're so educated, you're pulling me into all the stuff that matters. In our space, once again, everyone's chasing. We all did. I chased Candida like a dog chasing his tail. I chased parasites like a dog chasing his tail. I chased Lyme at one point. Every one of those hidden infections I chased, only to realize that the only reason they existed is because they're opportunistic. And the heavy metals had my body down, my immune system down here. And until I got the heavy metals out to a certain point, I couldn't even beat back Candida, let alone Lyme. And miraculously, as my immune system came up, as the metal came out, my immune system, then my Candida treatment worked. Then the parasites stayed away, right? Now, that could be the moldy home. It could be the heavy metals. It could be the infection. All of those things that we're talking about keeps the immune system down here. And those darn pesky, opportunistic pathogens, parasites, Candida, whatever they are, they will cause you discomfort. But how many practitioners are focused on trying to get you well from addressing the Candida or whatever it is? It's not going to happen.
Yeah. That was me. I was really into repairing the gut before I discovered heavy metals. And then when I started detoxing heavy metals, like my really difficult Candida patients started getting better. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean your Candida that we've been going after for 10 years is now officially gone? It just blew me away. Yeah. And one thing that I see is that you get people who, with all these co-infections, and it seems like more people have Lyme, parasites, Candida, EBV, and they are jumping from specialist to specialist to specialist, and everybody goes, oh, you're this because of your EBV problem, you're this because of your Candida problem. And nobody is looking at the totality of how to handle these infections and where metals play a part.
I had Epstein-Barr. I had cytomegalovirus, I had it all. But treating those things didn't make me well.
Right. Yeah.
I think every practitioner goes through that though, because I know that we did, where we're like, this person has this gut infection. They have, blastocystis hominis, a really terrible one. We just got to hammer it.
Right. Yeah. And it's not that we address those things, right? But again, without going upstream, it's useless, right? It's, you have to beat back, those things to even keep the detox pathways open. But again, it's not in it itself. It's not the answer.
And so doing the heavy metal detox isn't the be all end all. It's not going to fix everything. You still have to go after and address the co-infections or possibly even support hormone imbalance. But I think what we're all saying is if you don't address the
I think hormone support, you have to support downstream pathways. You have to support, every person has their weaknesses that need supported along the pathway of the detox and the infections, et cetera. You're right. And that develops, again, that therapeutic approach. And I know you all have talked to your folks about the perfect storm, right? And everyone wants it to be this one thing, but how people end up sick and how the genes of susceptibility get triggered. Your thyroid condition, your autoimmune condition. It's 3 stressors coming together and bam, that's what triggers the gene, whether it's too chemical, mold, heavy metals, and then the emotional stress. Maybe it's a car accident, it's a physical stress, right? Creates subluxation, there's a physical stress, and then the moldy home, and then the infection. It's always this combination of 3. It's just like the movie. The 3 weather fronts come together and they create a catastrophic storm. And that catastrophic storm in us is the gene of susceptibility being turned on. Crohn's, colitis, lupus, whatever it is.
Yeah. One of the mindsets that I see people use to approach these catastrophic storms is if I walk into my medical doctor's office and they give me a diagnosis of cancer, typically what they'll say is, and your solution is this round of chemo. So it's like a 1-to-1 correlation. So then somebody decides, well, I don't want to go the medical route. I want to go the alternative route. And so they end up still taking with them that 1-to-1 correlation, but that doesn't exist in this world that we're talking about. And that's why I love the idea of this multi-therapeutic approach, that it's really about creating a game plan and going, okay, I need to change my diet. I got to fast. I got to detox. I got to go to, like, that concept has to get out into the world because it's so missed.
Yeah. And I have to change it as we go too. You can't just continue doing the exact same thing forever.
Well, that's why you need a coach, right? Because, people try, we all have these people, right? They're on the same probiotic for a year. Now they're monoculturing. They're on the same multivitamin. They're on the same supplements. Why? They're on the same diet. Why? Because it worked at one point. At least it helped with a symptom. And now they have to understand that they have to evolve as the body is finding homeostasis. Mindy, to your point, it is the understanding of the body finding homeostasis, which means balance, that creates health. Everybody has cancer cells, but a body that's able to find homeostasis figures it out. It gets rid of the cancer cells constantly and it builds better cells. A body out of homeostasis because of one of these upstream stressors is a body that will eventually form disease, including cancer. It's a multi-therapeutic approach in understanding this flow and the balance that, again, so few really get and understand.
And I think it's the most confusing part of everything we're talking about. It's much easier for me to give somebody a pill and say, this is going to make all your problems go away. It is definitely the most confusing. And what I appreciate so much about you is that you have not only taught us to think about all the possible upstream causes, but you've also encouraged us to teach the patient how to get themselves well. And I think when you bring those two things together, now that's truly where the magic happens. You're not just handing multiple pills, you're handing knowledge and you're personalizing it for them. It's incredible.
If I was, on the other side as the patient, that's the value. Yeah. When you learn that, now you're empowered. Your life's going to change. If you don't, you're subject to be a patient your whole life, treated your whole life. Didn't work for me. And didn't work for you all. No. And that's why we're passionate. That's why we're here. But how few doctors are doing that because they don't want to lose the power. They don't. Right. But to me, if you're dealing with the stuff that we're talking about, it's the only way out.
Yep.
Well, and what I'd like to do, and you can correct me if this isn't okay to do, Dr. Pompa, if you guys want to learn more about this and learn, what Dr. Pompa does and, what Dr. Mindy does and what I do and what Dr. Sonia does is in our office, come to an HCF event.
First time the public's involved, able to come. We're doing it. Yeah.
I think you're allowing public to come. So you don't even have to be a practitioner, but you're going to start to learn all of these premises and how to look at things and how to address them for yourself. And then maybe you'll even get to meet myself, Dr. Mindy, Dr. Sonia, and you'll be able to pick Dr. Dan out of the crowd because he's legendary there. But I invite you guys to come and check it out and
be great.
Empower yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Well, this has been great. We could talk to you for hours. And again, I just, from the bottom of our hearts and from all of our patients, thank you for all the research you've done and for teaching us how to think this through at a really deep level. And I know we're going to change the world with this level of healthcare and this thorough approach and the way that we're looking at it. So
you're welcome. Loved it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, that's it for this week. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And practitioners, don't forget to check out our HCF seminar in Nashville, where we'll have a lineup of top health experts who will explore the latest research and most effective strategies in the field of cellular healing. Please go to hcfevents.com for more information. And practitioners, you can take $150 off with the code CHTV when you purchase the 4-day pass. And to the rest of our CHTV audience, please check out events.drpompa.com if you'd like to buy a 1-day ticket for our special day of public attendance. We hope to see you there. We'll be back next week and every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We truly appreciate your support. You can always find us at cellularhealing.tv